On a freezing night 2 weeks before Christmas, 1978, 6 men in a black van pulled up to a cargo building at New York's JFK Airport. 45 minutes later, they drove away with the largest pile of cash ever stolen on American soil. No alarms, no chase. By the time the world found out, the money had already vanished. And so, one by one, would the men who took it. To understand how it happened, you have to understand 1970s New York. Kennedy Airport was a gold mine for the mob. Cargo worth fortunes moved through it every night, guarded by underpaid workers and flimsy locks. The wise guys called it the candy store. If you knew the right people, almost anything that landed at JFK could be made to quietly disappear. It began with a man named Louis Werner, a cargo supervisor at Lufthansa. Werner had a problem most gamblers know well. He was deep in debt to a bookmaker, around $20,000 he simply didn't have. But Werner also had a secret worth far more than his debt. He knew that every single month a small fortune passed through his vault, and how easy it would be to take. The cash came from American servicemen and tourists in Germany, exchanged and flown back to the States in used, untraceable bills. It landed at Lufthansa's terminal, slept in the vault for a day or two, then moved on. Werner had watched millions of dollars sit there, protected by little more than routine, and slowly, he began to wonder what would happen if someone simply walked in and took it. Werner couldn't rob the vault himself, so he did the next most dangerous thing. He talked. The tip traveled from Werner to a bookmaker named Martin Krugman, then to a hustler named Henry Hill, and finally landed in the lap of the one man who could actually pull it off, a Lucchese crime family associate named Jimmy Burke. They called him Jimmy the Gent. He'd press $100 bill into a stranger's hand with a warm smile, then order a man killed the same afternoon without blinking. Burke ran his crew out of a bar in Queens called Robert's Lounge, a place where, it was later whispered, more than one body lay buried beneath the floor. When Burke heard about that vault, he saw the score of a lifetime. Burke didn't rush. For weeks, his crew studied the terminal, the shifts, the cameras, the guards, the exact path to the vault. Werner fed them everything from the inside, the layout, the schedule, even the names of the men who'd be working that night. By December, they had a plan timed almost to the minute. Get in, control the room, empty the vault, and be gone before anyone could reach a phone. The crew was a who's who of Burke's most trusted and most dangerous men. A driver, a wheelman for the crash car that would block any pursuit, gunmen who knew how to keep a room calm and terrified at the same time, and one man was handed a single, simple job for afterward: take the getaway van away and destroy it. That one job would eventually unravel everything. At around 3 in the morning, on December 11th, the black van rolled up to Building 261. A man already inside helped them through the doors. They moved fast and spoke little. Within minutes, they had rounded up the 10 night shift employees and herded them into the cafeteria, calm, controlled, and certain. The terrified workers later said the robbers seemed to know each of them by name. They walked the supervisor to the vault and made it very clear what would happen if he hesitated. He didn't. The heavy doors swung open, and for a moment even Burke's hardened crew stood still. Stacked before them was more money than they had dared to imagine, bundle after bundle of used, untraceable bills, with a small fortune in jewelry waiting right beside it. They loaded it into canvas duffel bags as fast as their arms could move, roughly $5 million in cash and nearly $900,000 more in jewels, almost $6 million in 1978. It was, by a wide margin, the single largest cash robbery in the history of the United States. To put that in perspective, the haul would be worth well over $25 million today, carried out of a single building by hand in under an hour. No tunnels, no explosives, just inside information, raw nerve, and the fear that Jimmy Burke's name carried through every room in New York. By sunrise, news of the robbery had torn through New York. The detectives who arrived at the terminal could scarcely believe what they were seeing. No broken alarms, no forced entry, no struggle. Whoever pulled this off hadn't simply gotten lucky. They had known precisely where to go, exactly when to strike, and every face that would be standing in their way. From the very first hour, the police were certain of one thing: This had been an inside job. They were back in the van and gone before the staff dared to move. The crew scattered into the New York night, the bags of cash bound for Robert's lounge. For a few short hours, it was the perfect crime. Burke had done the impossible, and not a single shot had been fired. All that remained was to clean up, and that was where it all began to fall apart. The rule was absolute. The van had to be destroyed, crushed, and gone, so it could never be traced back to anyone. But the crew member assigned to dump it, a man known as Stacks, didn't do his job. The van was discovered by police within days, fingerprints and all. Burke was enraged, and in his world, a mistake like that had only one solution. Almost overnight, the money made everyone dangerous. Too many people knew. Anyone who had touched the job or even bragged about it in the wrong bar was now a loose end. Burke trusted no one, and in the weeks and months that followed, the people connected to the heist began, very quietly, to disappear. Stacks, who'd left the van, was among the first to go. Then the bookmaker who had passed the tip. Then crew members, associates, even people who simply knew too much. Over the following year, investigators counted body after body, every trail leading back to the same score. The FBI knew exactly what was happening. They just couldn't prove it, because everyone who could talk was being silenced. It became one of the most maddening cases in FBI history. They knew who did it. They knew who had ordered the killings, but fear did its quiet work. Witnesses recanted, vanished, or turned up dead. In the end, out of one of the most famous robberies ever committed, only a single man was ever convicted of the heist itself. The inside man, Louis Werner. Werner, the supervisor whose gambling debt had started it all, was sentenced to 15 years. He had never even held a gun. His whisper had set the entire machine in motion, and he was the only one the law could pin it on. The mastermind, meanwhile, walked free, untouchable, protected by the silence of the dead. Jimmy Burke was never convicted of the Lufthansa heist. The law finally caught him years later for a different murder entirely, and he died behind bars in 1996, taking the secrets of that night with him. Where the money went, who got what, and how many people really died for it, he never said a single word. But the story refused to die. In 1990, Martin Scorsese turned it into one of the greatest crime films ever made, Goodfellas, narrated by the very same Henry Hill who had helped pass the tip. And decades later, in 2015, an aging associate finally stood trial for his role in the heist and was acquitted. The Lufthansa job had beaten the law one last time. Almost none of the money was ever recovered. No vault, no account, no buried stash was ever found. Nearly $6 million simply evaporated into the New York underworld, along with the men who knew where it went. If you love stories about heists, scams, and the criminals who almost got away, subscribe, because the next one is even harder to believe.